Alright, this is a review of Peter Parker Spider-Man 13, and this cover featured in my covers video that I did at the weekend. But there, of course, was a discrepancy with who did the cover. Everywhere online credits Lee Months as the cover artist, but Marvel themselves, they listed Junior as the cover artist. Well, I'm here today to resolve that and tell you exactly who did it. This is Lee Months. He also showed me that there was originally a wall that Spider-Man was slumped against that was edited out. Once again, I need to remind viewers, I am better than actual Marvel editors. This issue is a bother, and it is a bother because the main story is pretty decent, but the subplot and the developments in that are utter trash. I will try and ignore that stuff and focus on the main storyline with Carnage. And you have got to turn this page sideways to read it, which I love doing. Love it. It's the best thing about comics. The backstory required for this issue is that Woody Harrelson, the killer who is the human host of Carnage, well, he lost the Carnage symbiote a few issues ago. What happened was Venom came along and he ate it. It's actually a pretty good sequence. It is better than it sounds. So now Woody Harrelson is powerless but still insane. He is confident he will be rejoined with his symbiote, and he swears revenge on Venom, Spider-Man, and all the prison guards and stuff. As said, I will skip this stuff because I have nothing nice to say about what happens. But I will disclose at the end the bombshell / bullshit that we have to put up with. This story makes an odd choice, and that is to not show Woody Harrelson escaping a prison bus that he was on, which we didn't even see him on, by the way. Why wasn't that the introductory scene with him on the prison bus? That would make sense. The prison bus has crashed and he has escaped. Spider-Man, he saves the people on board and then tries to stop it from ganning off a bridge. But it doesn't matter because it does an explosion. If you are reading this comic at home, if you are a comic book fan who buys comics based entirely on what I review to read along with me, I advise just skipping any scene not related to the Carnage plot. Without his symbiote, Woody Harrelson breaks into a hardware shop and covers himself in red paint. It's ridiculous. Yes, I know it is ridiculous, but he is an insane man. He was always an insane man. The only thing I really question is that he has so accurately managed to cover his entire body in red paint from a single tin. It could be worse. Imagine if the idea was that he was painting himself in the blood of these two people that he killed. I suspect that was an idea tossed around in the writing room before someone pointed out that it was dumber than paint. So Woody, he gangs around covered in red paint. He is ganning on a killing spree. There is a very thin idea about codependency, and it is horribly juxtaposed with Peter Parker's need to be Spider-Man, and it asks if Spider-Man is as insane as Carnage. No, he is not. And after all this setup to a confrontation between Spider-Man and Red Paint Man, you'd anticipate something epic, but then you remember this is just a man covered in paint. So Spider-Man legitimately does one-shot him. And that ends with Venom watching from afar. I think one of the intentions of this story might have been to retire Carnage and Woody Harrelson as characters. We are firmly into the 90s Ayton part of the 90s. And you kind of get more 90s than Carnage. And while I like the character, or at least his design, I think this would have been a solid ending for him. I think a few years later, they just gave him back his symbiote without any explanation. At least they tried to write him out with some thought and care here. Okay, so you see, this horrible subplot stuff is Mary James has died in a plane crash. Feeble editorial demands of a bunch of sad, middle-aged men who cannot get over a boring dead girl not being Peter Parker's de facto true love. I cannot recommend the issue for that, and I would have had nice things to say about the comic if it was just the Carnage stuff. It has a person cover themselves head to toe in red paint, and I am into that sort of nonsense. Mary James, she came back as well. They said that she never died and she fucked off to Hollywood to be an actress instead. Didn't tell her husband or let him know that she wasn't dead. You see, she is not the dead girlfriend they insist on pushing. So, of course, it's unflattering to her. I want to tear this up because I so resoundly hate that Mary James die and shit. But the Carnage stuff is fun enough to balance out the scales so that this is just an average comic. 7 thumbs up.